Hari Om. Chapter 13. Krishna is telling Arjun, what you are not. First remove those heavy crusted layers of what you are not, if you are to find the true self. What is that? When we remove these layers, we become, in verse number 8 he says, amanitvam, the false pride, adambitvam, hypocrisy is removed, that is, and ahimsa, of course, the violence, the ill thoughts, the harboring of resentment towards others, they are all forms of hinsa. Shanti, forgiveness, all this has to be included in the personality. This is like removing all the heavy encrusted layers. Why? Because it is this heavy layers of sludge, let's call it, that is keeping us from our natural self. How do I know? Because whenever I am not agitated in my mind with kama or krodha or anger or false pride or dambha or unforgiveness or resentment, or when I am not agitated by any of this, what is the state or quality of my mind? The state and quality of my mind is Shanti. And in that Shanti, am I capable of feeling any dukkha? No. Neither in deep sleep, because in deep sleep, as we have seen, there is no mind to experience all these agitations, and therefore there is a natural Shanti. And in that emptiness of Shanti, dukkha cannot prosper or take fruit. So there is no dukkha in a state when my mind is not agitated, which means what? No dukkha is a state of pure bliss, anand. Now you may ask, when I am not agitated, where does this Shanti or Anand come from? Is it another thing from Sansar? That is a question that will lead us directly to ourselves, because we don't need, for Shanti and Anand to appear, we don't need another external stimulation or some kind of source outside. There is no source outside for that Anand and Shanti. We are the source of that Anand, and it just gets uncovered naturally. I removed the layers and I saw, okay, so there is clear water beneath. Just like when I removed the layers of moss which have gathered over a lake. What happens is that I can see briefly just below the surface. But once again, I get involved in Sansar, and the layers of moss just come together and cover the sight again. So one thing to remember, and very important, is that the source of Anand is not from any outside source or object or vastu or vyakti or paristhiti. It is our own nature, and therefore it comes up. So to bring us back to our own very nature, Bhagwan has said, yes, I need amanitvam, verse number 8, amanitvam adambitvam ahimsa kshantirarjavam acharyopasanam shaucham. This kind of cleanliness, shaucham, of the mental world, stharyam atma vinigraha, self-control, and stharyam, steadiness. I need steadiness in your application towards whatever goal you have taken. Even for worldly goals, we need stharyam, steadiness. So now, going forward, Bhagwan says a few more things. He says, I need a few more things from you. Verse number 9, we saw this. Indriyartheshu vairagyam ahankara evacha. Indriyartheshu, the objects of all your senses, I need some distance. I need you to create some distance and vairagyam towards these. Why? Because first of all, what kind of vairag, what is it that is weighing me down as a personality? At three levels. At the body level, I have to give up my attachment to all the physical things, because body level will attach only to physical things. Body is a physical thing. So, dhan and my appearance, etc., etc. So, a sense of detachment. At the mind level, my mind is always wandering into, I have done this, I have done that. Detach from that mind level preoccupation. Buddhi level, I know this, I can understand that, I know so much. Buddhi, the intellect is also vain, the vanities of the intellect, the vanities of the mind, and of course the vanities of the body, which we adorn so lovingly. This is what we need detachment to, because none of these are real. To know the real, you have to remove the unreal, which is like a layer of moss. And just as you, even if you take a finger and just run it over the layer of moss, you can have a glimpse of the clear waters and the pebbles and the shiny pebbles below the surface. That is the true self, which reveals itself, which is already there. When I remove the layer of moss, does that clear crystal water or the shiny pebbles under the in the lake, do they appear from somewhere else? No, they were always there. I had to remove something just to reveal it. So that's why knowing oneself or knowing the highest truth is actually called revealed knowledge. It's just revelation. It is nothing coming from outside. Now, when Bhagavan says, I need you to remove this Abhiman, well, we saw why this Abhiman grips us. And we saw that it was because of comparisons, unnecessary comparisons. Kabir has already said, बुरा जो देखन मैं चला, बुरा न मिलया कोई, जो दिल खोजा अपना, मुझसे बुरा न कोई. Even when we introspect, we will find that there is much work to be done. There's too much to be done within ourselves, rather than point fingers at others, make comparisons, feel smaller than some, feel bigger and more important than others. What is the whole purpose of it? No purpose. Now, this comparison, unnecessary comparison, which is we have become habituated to, has to be broken, because it is leading us into the sansar. Bhagavan says, now how is it possible for you to break this being dragged into sansar? Simple. Second line of verse number 9, chapter 13. Janma mrityu jara vyadhi dukha dosha darshanam. We know that this entire world is made of matter, the physical world, of course, and so are we. This matter is interacting with matter, and because we remember, if not because, but if at all we remember, each time we get into all these kinds of vanities of the body, the mind and intellect, that just remember the inevitable pain and sorrow and disintegration of matter leads to Janma, Mrityu, old age, disintegration and death. Janma, Mrityu, Jara, Vyadhi. Bhagavan is saying, do what with it? Nothing. Just remember the evil and the pain of all this. Anudarshanam means just perceive it, just see it, that's all. He's not even asking you to do anything drastic with it. He is confident that just seeing it, Anudarshanam, will clear the path for us to say, oh my God, if this is the entire cycle, then why am I getting caught? So, we have to remember that Janma, Mrityu, Jara, Vyadhi, this birth and death and creation and disintegration happens only and only to anything that is made of matter. Creation and destruction happens only to matter. Am I matter only? Yes, I am matter, but matter only? No, I am matter plus tattva, plus another essence. Otherwise, I wouldn't be able to function. I would just be like a log of wood. Now, I may say that I am Buddhiman, and so where does the power of this Buddhi, the splendor, the brilliance come from? If we cannot identify it, we have to believe there is a higher power. And that higher, which is powering me, is not even subject to Janma, Mrityu, Jara, Vyadhi. See the beauty of it. I believe that I am subject as a body to Janma, Mrityu, Jara, Vyadhi, but that which powers me is not subject to Janma, Mrityu, Jara, Vyadhi. It is not part of that cycle at all. That means it's something apart, and it is eternal, and it is Shashvat, eternal and infinite. It is existing forever. Yes, that is you. That is the true nature. And therefore in the second chapter it was said, Dehinosmin yatha dehe kaumaram yovanam jara. So this deha of yours has gone through so many phases of childhood and youth and old age. And have you said that this is not me, this is not me, oh this is the real me, the young one is me, the old one is not me? No, all of it is us, me. Dehinosmin. It has gone through all the phases only. What has gone through the phases? Only the matter, this body. this matter, material, Prakriti has gone through childhood and Dehinosmin Yatha Dehe, Kaumaram, Yovanam, Jara, 3 phases. But not me, my essence, my tattva. It hasn't gone through any phase. It just is. Existence just is. So Bhagavan says, if you just anudarshanam, just think of this fact, maybe you will be freed in some form out of your own little vanities of and also attractions to the objects of your senses. Indriyartheshu vairagyam. I need your distance, and you can create it by thinking of this, that only matter is created and destroyed. So he has given a method and also what to do. So this is like a real manual for life. Even the methodology is given. How beautifully it's written. Now, dukkha of janma and mrityu and jara and vyadi, do we like it? No, we don't. Why? Because it's not our true nature. Anything that is antithetical, vipreet to our nature, we will dislike it. It's like not in consonance with my true sense, with my true self. So it's like a sitar playing music, and suddenly there is a discordant note, like a string which is broken, let's say, and that breaking is symbolic of disintegration, disease and death. Okay, and it creates a horrible sound if the string breaks in the middle of the music. Now, does a musician like that sound? No, because the nature of music is not discordance, it is consonance. It is the beauty of music that that is consciousness which is ever present. And when we hear the sound of dukkha or a broken string, it's completely disliked. Simple, because it's not me. So that detachment and vairagya that he is talking about is just to be able to say, oh, that's not me. So detach from the old. Okay, everything around me is old because I've been with this matter for all this while, the house, the car, the table, the friends, the family, and even this body of mine, which you may treat as another object that we hold. I am now going to detach from the old, listening to Krishna saying vairagyam. How? If I detach, for what purpose, first of all? The first question that arises is, for what? So, the question, answer is absolutely clear. If I want to know the absolute, I need a very fine, sophisticated, delicate instrument. I cannot take a spade and start playing the sitar. I need a very, very fine, delicate, slim plectrum to play the guitar, let's say. That plectrum is a very fine blade, very slim. So, Sukshma mind is what is needed for something that is to be known, which is very Sukshma and absolute. Now, my indriya, they are far from Sukshma, far from subtle. So, indriyartheshu vairagyam, first of all, please stop following, he says, your indriya, because they are so sthul, so sluggish, so heavy, and they tie you heavily to the world. Indriyartheshu. We are aware, and we have seen this from the text of Adi Shankaracharya ji. It is his centenary today, Adi Shankaracharya Jayanti today, so I must quote him. In Vivek Chudamani, which is a text by him, he has said that all the creatures have some kind of a sensory weakness. So a moth is attracted to light. Light is its weakness, or sight, let's call it. And deer is attracted to sound, and a bee to smell, and fish to taste, and an elephant to touch. And it's easy to trap them with all these things. So, but what about man? All these creatures are bound by one sense. Man is bound to all of these senses, touch and sight and sound and everything he wants to devour or have a, let's call it a bhog and enjoyment of each of these senses in a most greedy fashion. How can he be free then? Because it is then, it's the indriya which are going to be in command. How can we be in command? So, how is it that we are greedily going out into the world of indulgences through our senses? Body level, we have all kinds of indulgences: oversleep, overeating, binge watching, of course overeating is already mentioned, workaholism, yes, even workaholism is a kind of bodily overindulgence, and or any kind of addiction actually. And at mind level, of course, there are obsessive thoughts, especially if we are slighted and we want to get our own back with someone. That thought just doesn't seem to leave us. It grips our mind. It is as if it's in control of our minds. Our minds and ill thoughts are what we are chasing. And so the bottom line is that any kind of extreme, when Bhagavan is saying in the 9th verse, Indriyartheshu Vairagyam, he means to say any kind of extreme practice that we indulge in is not going to allow us meditation. Meditation is precluded completely if there is any extreme in any kind of addiction, workaholism, oversleep, overeating, gossip, over shopping. So I don't know if the rishis were used to shopping or over shopping, but one thing is clear, that the rishis were able to achieve and were able to perceive that highest truth in their deepest samadhi and meditation, because they did not drain and dissipate their energy through their senses, through these doors, let's call it the open doors of the senses. They did not dissipate their energy, and that's what we are doing. If we dissipate our energy, how is it possible for us to contemplate or meditate? And it is through these instruments or practices that we can know the highest. So that's why we have to take the words of Krishna seriously when he says, Indriyartheshu Vairagyam, have detachment. And do not dismiss this phrase by Bhagavan by saying, oh, Vairagyam, he has meant it for the renunciates, for the sannyasis, it's not for me. No, it's for us to practice. Make sure that we are not doing anything in extremes, conserving our vital energy for a higher purpose. So Vairagyam, why? Because we need that energy for a higher purpose. What should we do? Moderation in everything. Moderation in sleep and work. Even working needs moderation. And shopping and entertainment, everything moderation. This is the mean golden path, as Buddha said. The golden path is the path of moderation. So even sattvic entertainment is allowed. But when we are drawn too much into by the attractions of the sensory objects, maybe we can delay gratification and say, okay, not now. Let me finish this chapter. Let me read 5 shlokas. Let me do my homework for the shloka that I have been given, or let me learn whatever, or let me finish 1 chapter of the biography I am reading, or let me just finish my japa for the day. Suppose I have fixed japa of 1 mala in the morning or 1 mala in the evening. I say, okay, I'll finish this mala or this bhajan or this puja or this archana, something, or I'll just go and wash my car, or do some duty towards my family, some duty towards society, anything. But I'll hold, it's just a trick, hold or delay the gratification where my mind or my heart is driving me to fulfillment. And I feel that I will be fulfilled by indulging in some sensory pleasure outside. Hold it, delay it, and the chances are that it will pass. It will be forgotten by the mind. The mind is impulsive. So the impulsive mind has to be trained. And therefore living a life of impulses and without contemplation or a thought or restraint is like how the other creatures live. The other creatures live only by instincts and impulses. Ye karna hai, bas kar dalo. Therefore he has said, Indriyartheshu Vairagyam, so important for the common man. And therefore, and secondly, Vairagyam means give up. In common parlance, suppose we say give up. Give up what? What is it that we can give up? We can give up only that which we possess. Is there anything in the sansar that we actually possess? No, because it is there as a temporary trusteeship for us for some time. Even this house, after 30 years or 35 years, is going to belong to someone else. My car, in 10 years, is going to go for scrap. It's already ready for scrap. It will belong to someone else. It will change its form. What is it that I possess? Whatever. Think of anything. If there is jewelry at home or whatever, it's going to belong to someone else. If not now, sooner or later, nothing belongs to me. Not even this body. It's going to go back to dust. So then how can we say, oh, I give up? Give up what? You don't even possess anything. So the story of the beggar who gave up his position at church gate, and he was not seen at church gate begging, and the commuter asked, where is that beggar today? And then he was found at another station. He said, oh, that church gate station, I gave up that begging position to my son-in-law. So we are actually only beggars. Beggars meaning taking whatever we can, grabbing things from the earth, from people in relationships and vastu and vyakti and all sensory pleasures which are temporary, and grabbing them and saying mera hai, my pan and mera pan is like holding on for a temporary, like a fist of sand or water in your hand for a temporary period. You feel the exhilaration and the pleasure. Ye mera hai. The water drains out from a fist maybe in 30 seconds. But this house, this possession, this family, my son, my putra, my spouse will drain out from this from my possession maybe in 30-40 years. There's only a difference in time. But the fact that it will drain out from my fist and doesn't belong to me is the only fact. So I cannot give up what's not mine sooner or later. Therefore, the trick that I had thought about was to, even as we are living, after a certain age, to bequeath, to write a will, write it off to someone, to some institution, to some sanstha, to some deserving people. Because families are an extension of ourselves. So we see an extension of ourselves in our families and putra and spouse. So that will not help us to create dispassion between me and the sansar. Apart from family, if we are able to bequeath, to write our will off to someone, that while we are living will create in our mind a dispassion, a distance. I know that this is going to go to someone after my death. So why am I getting so attached to it? Okay. It already creates the dispassion, the vairagyam, which Bhagwan is talking about. That means we are not giving up anything. While we are living, we are not giving up anything. Such a demand is never made by the scriptures. Yes, we are not giving up the world, we are giving up worldliness. The attachment with rag. The attachment to these things with rag and sense of myness, aham. That is the only thing we are giving up. So the renunciation is not of the objects but of the sansari hold, the grip that we have of it and the grip that it has of us. It's the other way around most of the time, that it's not the food we eat, it's food which eats us, which is true, because if we overeat, its food is going to destroy our health and kill us. So it's food which is eating us and destroying our health most of the time. So things and objects grip us, we don't grip them. Now, how does Adi Shankaracharya ji, how does he describe Vairagya? He says, Iha amutra, neither here nor there, phal bhog, phal ki bhog karna, the results of my action or my action, uska bhog enjoy karna is called viragah. Iha amutra, near, not now, not hereafter. Sometimes we say, okay, मैं पुण्य कर रहा हूँ, मुझे अगले जन्म में ये चाहिए, वो चाहिए. अमुत्र, अगले जन्म में भी नहीं, here and hereafter में फल का भोग करने की इच्छा, I'm going to drop. That is the only brilliant definition of vairagya by Adi Shankaracharya ji. Ichha rahityam. I don't have that desire to have phal ki ka bhog karna hai. That means only my dependency, my craving has been relinquished. Nothing else has been relinquished here, right now. So in summary, what is it that Bhagwan wants us to do? Not switch off from anything, but just drop our obsessive hankering and our impulsive grabbing of things. Even though there are things which I don't really need for my sustenance, for my health, for my growth, for my spiritual life, there are so many things I don't need, but I still on an impulse go and collect those things, and I just become hoard those things, and I accumulate a lot of things. If you go, there are so many of our friends who will tell you that over the wardrobes there are lofts, right? Most of us have lofts over the wardrobes. Now many of them don't remember ki we have, every room has lofts, and they don't remember usme hai kya, because it's stuffed with things that you've forgotten to use and then forgotten what it is. But why are we collecting and hoarding and accumulating? Because it's become a habit. So accumulation becomes a habit of what? Of worldly things, not of knowledge or gyan or bhakti, but accumulation of outer things. And outer things are only meant to be disintegrated, die, destroyed. So the whole cycle doesn't seem to make sense. When we see the futility and the meaninglessness, one fine day we sit down and say, then what is this life all about? That's when the jigyasa arises, and there is an intellectual curiosity, jigyasa, and an intellectual thirst, and also a dynamism to say, yes, I'm going to find out. The energy is saved from accumulating so much. Then it is possible for us to have a mastery over our senses. Mastery over our senses is what keeps us away from sansari involvement, let's put it. So, mastery over our senses, that's what we need. So, does Vairagya make me a very dull and very uninteresting and very morose kind of a personality? No. You will see the happy, cheerful dynamism of so many Zen Buddhist monks. Actually, most of the monks, if you meet them, many of them have such a sense of humor about sansar, about people, but they are compassionate. They are not sardonic about, this is what you do, this is what I do. Not that kind of sardonic humor, of course not. They are compassionate, and they are filled with fun, and like children they enjoy a sense of awe about the beauty and everything they enjoy, and but no, not overindulging, not getting involved, not getting caught. And therefore that Vairagya has actually made them more let's say more fun loving, more beautiful, more joyous, more cheerful, and more dynamic. So it's actually the opposite. When we say, "Arey Vairagi, ye to bada morose hoga," no, that's just a false image that we carry in our heads. Just meet any of the monks and you sit with them. What wonderful tales they have to tell you about from the scriptures, and lots of stories about sansari people, and how sansar can be, the shackles of sansar can be broken. They keep you entertained more than any of the OTT platforms. And in that entertainment, they are helping you grow spiritually. They are dynamic people, not morose, not disinterested and disenchanted with the world. That is not Vairagya. Oh, I'm disenchanted. Mujhe to Vairag ho gaya hai. That is a Smashan Vairag. You know what is a Smashan Vairag? When you see the crematorium and you say, oh, I have a temporary Vairag. I don't see any purpose in this life. I feel the futility of it. Yes, if you go down the Ganges in Varanasi, what happens is in the evening, the boatman sometimes takes you on a beautiful, silent boat ride down the Ganges when the sun is going down, and you can see the colors of the Ganga changing at sunset. And then he passes one ghat called Manikarnika Ghat, which is the burning ghat, the famous burning ghat of Varanasi. And he stalls there for some time for us to actually view the crematorium. Yes, there is nothing morose about it. In Varanasi, they actually do it. That here, this is a tourist attraction. You won't believe it. The only place in the world where they will take you opposite burning ghat, and they will have you, and so many tourists, so many boats, they halt there for some time in silence. And we are supposed to, in that silence, to view the bodies being cremated, and the flames of the fires leap up into the air and throw their light onto the Ganges on the waves, making the waves of the Ganges so flamboyant, burnished red in the evening. It's a sight to behold. And what is the quality of mind at that time? We feel, if this is where I'm going to end up, on a pile of wood, then why am I getting so agitated? And then there is a thought about Nitya Anitya, Vivek. The Vivek means Nitya Anitya ka fark samajhna, permanent and impermanent के बीच का फर्क समझना, वो discernment is called Vivek. हमको एक विवेक आ जाता है. विवेक से natural corollary वैराग्य आ जाता है, detachment. क्या है, मैं इस सब चीज़ों में क्यों पड़ा हुआ हूँ, getting attached to this and that, and every attachment causes me sorrow. I'm going to end up on that pile of wood. There I can see another body being lowered onto another pile of wood. और वो देखते हैं, and it's actually a tourist attraction, believe it or not. And we have been through it as many times as we have visited the city. It's amazing. As we move on and take the boat ride up the Ganges, because it flows east towards Calcutta, we go upward and we disembark at the Shashwamedh Ghat, which is a famous big ghat with temple bells resounding in the evening. It's the sound and the light of that, the aura of it is unbelievable and inimitable. And you disembark at the Shashwamedh Ghat, you climb up the steps, and you are hosted by some people, the local people there. And as soon as you're on the topmost step, you are in one of the gullies. What do you say to your host or to the local person who's traveling with you? We ask a very important question. Where can I buy a nice Banarsi brocade sari? Everyone asks that, believe it or not. We've all been through it. It is not a joke. What was the difference between that vairagya, that it was very momentary vairagya. It's not that we are not capable of it. It was momentary and it passed. That feeling of vivek and vairagya, and we are back into sansar because the inexorable pull of sansar, the grip it has on us is so deeply conditioned that our mind and bodies are conditioned. And the first thing we remember is, अरे उन्होंने ब्रोकेड साड़ी मंगाई है हमको दिल्ली में, बम्बई में, जहाँ भी हमको वापस जाना है, उन्होंने बनारसी साड़ी मंगाई है, मुझे भी चाहिए, और हम जाएंगे उनके शॉपिंग के लिए तो अपने लिए भी उठा लेंगे. And I go shopping and I am crazily involved in the sight of these beautiful brocades which are rolled out from shop after shop. That's another sight in Varanasi. So, from deeply being steeped into sansar to extreme vairagya, you can, within a span of few steps, you get that extreme experience. If we are not aware of it, what am I being drawn into? I can be drawn into this and that, sansar and out of it, sansar and out of it, and it's happening to us all the time. Bhagavan says, hold on to that vairagya consistently. I need that consistency. How? In verse number 10 he says, dispassion. Asaktirana bhishvangaha putradara grihadishu nityam cha samachittatvam ishtanishtopapatishu. Asakti. I need detachment, non-attachment. We saw that when we were on the boat viewing the funeral pyres at Manikarnika Ghat, yes, we were detached. No attachment. Sari, the thought of saris were not on my mind. The thought of nitya, anitya, what is permanent, impermanent was. But he says, asaktira, that detachment. And anabhishvangaha, non-identification. To what? I want that non-identification. Now this is strong, huh? Be careful. He says, putra, your son, dara, your spouse, and your home, griha, adi, nityam, adishu, and all the rest of it. Putra, dara, griha, adishu, I want dispassion and non-identification with all these things. Now this is a bit strong. How can it be? My son. Now here, Bhagavan says detachment and dispassion from putra, spouse and house, putra, dar and griha, doesn't mean he is asking for detachment only from three things. Okay, Krishna asked for three things, I'll try for three things. Arey nahi. Sansar is so big, and and there are so many millions of things attracting my senses, and I'm losing myself in each one of them. Each time I'm slipping into temptation. No. These are only symbols of all the sansari objects. So Chinmayaji used to say, son, here putra is a symbol of all those things which, all those people who are dependent on you, or even institutions who are dependent on you. So that can be a symbol of all those things. Dar, all those things on which you are dependent. So you're dependent on the spouse. And griha, all those things which you possess. So symbolically, it covers the entire gamut of the sansari things in which we dwell. putra dara grihadishu, or the adi and the rest of it, he says, na adishu, all the rest of it, I want asakti. Asakti, non-attachment. A bit strong, you may say, but Krishna has only and only our well-being and welfare in his mind. He cannot be giving us advice that leads us into despair. He cannot, he will never do it, or lead Arjun into despair. He's pulling him out of despair, in fact. And that's the secret, that we will be pulled out of our dukh and despair, not the opposite of it, as we may imagine. Arey mera putra dar, and I get detached to these things, I may feel despair. No, it's the opposite. A word of caution here is that some people think, and I call it the filter of 3 Ds. The filter of 3 Ds has to be applied here. What is that filter of 3 Ds? The first D is disinterest. Some people think asakti or dispassion or detachment is disinterest. No. It's not disinterest, because I have all my duties to putra, dara, griha, all the things around me. I have to do my duties, and I have to do it without being attached. So it's not disinterest, it's not pulling away from my duties, and that's a form of escapism. In fact, that is worse, disinterest. No. Bhagavan will never advise that. This is the first filter. Make sure that we are not doing it out of disinterest and saying, oh, I've dropped it, I'm not interested. No, you may still have duties towards their welfare, well-being. We have to stick to that. Okay, that's very clear, because we already hold their welfare in our hearts. So the second D, the filter of the second D is despair, or let's call it a kind of desperation. What is desperation? Desperation is without putra, dara, griha, my spouse, putra, that is my children, offspring, and all these, I am dead. I cannot live without them. And without this house that I have built with all my life savings, 30 years of work, and I have put my life savings into this house, you know that? Yes, we tell our mind such things. Without this house and this spouse and this son and all the things, material things which these are symbols of, I cannot live. I will sink into despair. This kind of desperation is not vairagya. The second D, filtration. So what is that? The final D of real asakti is detachment, meaning that realizing that I have a problem if I attach myself. The problem of attachment is that, one, I will be dragged over and over again, bound hand and foot, dragged into punarjanma over and over, into inevitable evil and pain and sorrow again and again. There is no choice. The more clearly we see this, the more distance we create with a shock and say, oh, anudarshanam, Bhagavan said, na? See the evil of these things. And then I say, oh, I don't want to be dragged into inevitable despair and sorrow in the following lives. Okay. Second problem of attachment, if I see, then I'll say, ठीक है, I'm enjoying, मैं भोग कर रहा हूँ, हर चीज का भोग कर रहा हूँ, लेकिन कितना करूँगा? Because there is no end to it. I want more and more and more of everything. If I enjoy this again, I want it again and again. If I enjoy something else, vastu, vyakti, paristhiti, ghatna, I want more of it again. So kab tak? Kab tak? Because there is no end to it. Is never enough. That is what that's what the mischievous mind does. It's never enough. So Bhagavan is saying, just be aware of where this attachment is dragging you, and then you have to do nothing. This awareness, anudarshanam, just see it, and it by itself you will find the right detachment. And the second thing is, and the third thing, of course, about attachment is that when I'm attached to my putra, dara, griha, adi, I am then subject to all the dukkha, sukha, ups and downs of these things, and I'm subject to sukha dukkha along with them, let's put it that way, which means I'm tied to them and my sukha dukkha is tied to them, so I'm not free, and because my Sukha Dukha is tied to that, my mind then goes into काम, क्रोध, मद, लोभ, मोह, anger. उसको क्यों मिल गया, मुझे क्यों नहीं मिला? Jealousy, anger and desire is something I can't get out of. And what are these vikara or the coverings, let's say? They are covering up my true self. So the covering of my true self is because of my attachment, because my attachment is causing all this moss over the lake, let's call it. And it is never enough, so it goes on and on and on. And it is dragging me into several lives ahead, destined to do the same things, not go into a following life with a fresh slate, let's say a new slate, and say, okay, now I am going to lead a spiritual life. Arey, aisa nahi hota. If I am steeped in materialism today, the impressions of it, you know very well, are going to be carried by the karmic law into my future lives. So these three things make me, these three perceptions, anudarshanam, make me realize, attachment, asakti, I am going down the wrong path. And who is going to pull me out of it? I am the only one who has the power to make that change. That change can be made with my own purushartha. Now, a small distinction here, a jnani, one who is seeking jnana, means like jnana meaning he follows the rational path, and he says, I want to know the pure logic of what leads to what, cause and effect, and I will follow it. So suppose I am seeking jnana, then I will say, this is leading me down the wrong path, so I am going to rationalize and make sure that with my purusharth. So a jnani says, ye purusharth mera hai, I will make the effort. But there are some who will say, I despair because my conditioning is so strong. I just cannot pull out of this conditioning because I'm attracted and attached to everything, especially my putra, dar and griha, the house, spouse and putra. How? And in that despair, another kind of a seeker arises, and that is the bhakta. And he is bhav pradhan, emotion pradhan, predominantly emotional, and he says, no, I am not going to use my intellect, I am going to use my emotions, and I'll just fall at the feet of Krishna or Bhagwan or God or whatever you call it, that higher power, and I'm going to surrender and say, you lead me out of this, I don't care. Mera purusharth, my mind, my buddhi fails over here. Unlike the jnani who keeps on trying and saying, Mera purusharth will lead me out of it. Yes, fine, if it is strong enough, steady enough, sthairya enough. And the bhakta says, I surrender. Surrender needs even more power, by the way, because surrender means surrender of aham. Aham, the I, ego. And do you know that that is harder, much harder than just following a simple logic with the buddhi? So much harder, because aham is sticking to me even more strongly. But the bhakta has the power to do it, and he falls at the feet of any higher power. You call that higher power the Allah or God or Bhagwan or Brahman. The name doesn't matter, because in any case it doesn't have a name. It is beyond Naam and Roop. And he says, pull me out of it, Bhagwan. My attachment is dragging me into a world of evil and sansar and punarjanma, and the dukkha of punarjanma and the evil of it. And the moment he says this out of emotion, so this is the bhakti marga, you can say, he chooses to follow maybe japa or dhyan or bhajan or kirtan or satsang or naam jap, main Bhagwan ka naam lunga, I'll just fall at his feet. The quality of mind in both will change, will transform. The quality of mind cannot remain the same, either for the ज्ञानी, ज्ञान मार्ग अगर आप चूज करें, या भक्ति मार्ग, आप जो भी मार्ग चूज करें. कर्मयोग की तो अभी हम बात ही नहीं कर रहे हैं इस वक्त, because that's a whole huge chapter. कर्मयोग में भी there has to be a surrender of the self. In all these there is a complete transformation of the petty self, let's call it, the ego self. क्यों? Because that seeker in the very seeking has gone beyond the ego and says, yes, something is dragging me down, I am looking for the higher. And in saying that, he has developed a detachment, he has dropped something that is dragging him and is now holding on to something which is higher. The transformation has to happen with the thirst, the craving for the higher. So we can't say that, अरे मुझे तो भगवान मिल नहीं रहे. No. the transformation has already happened with the very thought that this attachment will lead me to nowhere. It is a dead end alley going on to Janma and Janmantar of more and more Janma, Mrityu, same spouses, not same spouses, thankfully, more and more marriages and spouses and putra, and the same collecting money, spending 40 years of my mind on my savings, क्योंकि मुझे वो घर चाहिए था, तो बहुत सारी मेरी एनर्जी उस accumulation में चली गई और जाएगी. So the moment I see the futility of it, that moment of transformation has happened. Believe me. So Swamiji sometimes say that the Jnani is like the monkey baby. You know what the monkey baby does? It says, मेरे पुरुषार्थ से मैं अपने मम्मी को पकड़ के रखे हूँ. Yes, that's true. The baby monkey clings tightly to the stomach of the mother monkey, who then can jump from branch to branch and go about her business of collecting food, etc. Who is holding on? The baby monkey. So the Jnani says, मैं पकड़े हूँ. I am doing the effort, the purushartha of keeping my mind steady and reminding myself all the time and doing Shravan, listening to more and more, years of listening, Manan, contemplation, Nitidhyasanam, staying in that contemplation, Shravanam, Mananam, Nitidhyasanam. I am the monkey baby, Jnani. Bhakta says, मुझे शक्ति ही नहीं है भैया, मैं इतना कमजोर हूँ. And he falls at the feet. He is like the kitten, like the baby of the cat. Have you seen how the mother carries the kitten? The kitten is carried by the neck, by the cat, mother cat, and the kitten does nothing. It says, I surrender. I trust that Mother God, whatever that higher quality, that higher power will take me to safety, to liberation. I have nothing to do in this. I have only to surrender and believe. Surrender and believe. If the kitten did not believe in the mother's power and intention of taking her out to security, it wouldn't surrender. It closes its eyes, surrenders, and is carried from place to place. And the cat will happily change the position, the hiding place of the kitten 7 times to keep it safe from predators. So do you mean to say that the bhakt doesn't do any purushartha effort on itself? उनको श्रवण में या नितिध्यासनम में या अभ्यास में, क्योंकि हमारा मन हो सकता है इतनी एकाग्रता, the quality of the mind to sustain ekagrata, to read volumes and volumes of books and to listen to Swamis, हो सकता है इतनी हमारी capacity ना हो. But I may have the capacity, and again I must remind you, bhakti is a kind of surrender of the ego, and if you ask me, it requires more strength to give up the ego than to go into a voluminous Upanishad and say, मैंने उसको पढ़ लिया है और उस पर मैं contemplate कर रहा हूँ. Both require strength, and it is the seeker. It's the seeker who is going to be ferried across the Bhavasagar of Sansar. But both have to ask, and both have to seek, and both have to land up in a position where we need to hold on to the higher power, that Allah, that God, that Jehovah, Brahman. How does the name matter? It is beyond name, beyond time, beyond space, beyond roop, beyond shape, beyond size, beyond description. We know that. And therefore, Bhagavan says, asakti, can you please be, at least want that detachment, the asakti, and anabhishwangaha, non-identification. Don't identify with these things. So visualize yourself as beyond this. When we go to the crematorium, how can we visualize ourselves as a great director of a company, or the head of a family, or the mother of a loving son, or this or that? All the identifications are gone. So it may seem even like, and you know, there is this volumes and volumes on Vairagya which have been written, and some of them, they want to shake us out of our very consistent attachment and attraction and love for sansar. They want to shake us out so badly that they use some very abhorrent, very grotesque imagery. I don't know if we are even ready for it, but I'm going to read them out anyway. The very terrible imagery is that one would run, if we are detached truly to the world, we would run away from what? From the dead, from the embrace of a dead queen's rotting body. Yes, of course, I'm detached. But I'm not detached to the world, you see, because I don't see the world as the body of a dead queen whose body is rotting. I see it as, alive, attractive, and so entertaining, so beautiful, so pleasure-giving, and all the tinsel, sound and sights of the world. No, I see the world as that. He says a Vairagi will see the world like the rotting body of a... And will I run to embrace such a queen? That means, will I run to embrace such a world? Here, they also mean that even a living body, by the way, which we run to embrace, is only nothing but dead matter. We know that. Or would we run to quench our thirst instead of running to a spring and nectar of Shastra? Run to quench our thirst from the seeping wound of a leper? So, imagery is a bit strong. We can get detached only if we see how badly we are being dragged into sansar from janma to janma. And also, in order to refresh ourselves, wouldn't we jump into the spring of the words of the Shastras or of some beautiful shlokas being sung about gods or about the truth being spoken in the Upanishad? These are the springs of the mountains that we can refresh ourselves in. Instead, would we jump into a cauldron of hot molten iron or hot oil and say, I'm refreshing myself in a hot, boiling hot cauldron of oil? Actually, that's what we are doing. A strange description, but a kind of way to shock the mind, a way of shocking the complacent, comfortable, pleasure-seeking, non-truth-seeking mind, habituated mind that we have got sunk into, mind habituated to the surface pleasures of the world. Vairagya is a very strong topic. In fact, one of my uncles in Varanasi, when I chanced at his home, there were volumes and volumes of scriptures, and I chanced upon this volume published by Gita Press. It was an annual volume on Vairagyam. And Vairagya Shatakam, by the way, by Rishi Bhartrahari, is a beautiful, it says 100 analogies for Vairagya. These are some of them. 100 such images. He said, no. He pulled that book out of my hands, my uncle, and said, no, this is not for you. It is actually, you're not ready for it. This is not the right age for it. And all that, he dissuaded me actually from reading this book on Vairagya. Why? Because most people think that it is something that will make me dysfunctional, disenchanted with the world. Disenchanted, yes, but not dysfunctional in the world. Why? Because I have my duties, and with loving care I will complete my duties. I will not become dysfunctional. This detachment is only a psychological detachment. It is not a functional escapism. That's what people need to understand before they dismiss this beautiful word. Why am I dwelling so much on this word asakti or vairagyam that Bhagwan has used? Mainly because, of course, he has repeated these thoughts repeatedly in the Gita, and this forms the core message, the central theme of Gita. Tyag. If we don't get hold, a grip on the central theme, then what are we getting a grip on? Nothing. On a few smattering shlokas here and there, a few words, and a few ideas maybe to talk about, and then say, mujhe vairagya ho gaya hai, and taking pride in vairagya. I have given up, I have given $100 as donation to such and such, and taking pride even in charity and in being able to give up things, give up wealth. Now that is exhibitionism. It's the opposite of detachment. Exhibitionism and escapism, all these are tricks of the mind. We have to be so careful. We are people of a rational mind, and therefore I'm taking the trouble to say, look, there will be a slip between the cup and the lip, because the moment you understand Vairagya, there, the mind has again tricked us into slipping, into escapism or into exhibitionism, मैं तो ये करता हूँ, etc., etc. What is the biggest irony of life? The biggest paradox and irony of life is that I am permanently hooked on. Permanently? Yes, permanently hooked on to what? To all the impermanent things of life. The greatest joke is on us. This is the God's joke on us. That jao, sansar mein, there is this great ocean. You can dip into the ocean. You can sense the depth of the ocean. I am giving you all the freedom to swim in the ocean and to know the ocean. But no, you also have the choice to stand on the shore and to pick up small pebbles and shingles on the beach and say कि oh मुझे सत्य मिल गया, मुझे pleasure मिल गया, मुझे I have this fun and I am now into this travel or this journey or this acquisition, and all the vanities of life and all the shiny shingles and shells I pick up on the seashore, and I say, oh, ocean, I don't know what the ocean is. And the ocean again has the last laugh on us, because I am that wave. I am that wave that comes washing up onto the shore and picks up a few grains of sand and shingles and shells and goes back and says, you know what I have collected. But the ocean says, you know what you are actually? Have you ever asked? You have collected a lot of stuff, okay? Back and forth. So the wave crashing onto the shore and back and forth. Okay, janm after janm, back and forth. What's the whole purpose? The wave has to know its true nature if it wants to ask, finally. And we have to know our true essence. And we'll know it when? It's not when we give up our duties in the Grihastha ashram. Once again, the last point of emphasis is Vairagya is not for the sannyasi and the renunciate. It is for the Grihastha too. Because during Grihastha ashram, that's why the ashrams have been divided like this, that in the first brahmacharya you gain some knowledge and of the sansar and of spirituality, and then Grihastha ashram you enjoy all the pleasures possible of the world and also do your duties towards sansar. You have to sustain yourself and the community and your parivar. That is what Grihastha ashram 25 years is meant for. Even the time span has been mentioned by the Shastras. 25 years later, having enjoyed everything, am I not saturated of it? Am I not feeling the sense of, okay, ho gaya, bas? I'm not feeling a sense of completeness in anything that I touch temporarily, that I possess temporarily. I don't feel a sense of permanent completeness. Have I not realized that after 25 years of seeking permanent fulfillment in impermanent objects and people and vastu and vyakti and situations, whatever? That's what it's meant for. To have that feeling of saturation and to say, okay, 25 years of Grihastha, I'm done. I'm not going to take on any more responsibilities. The next generation knows what its Grihastha responsibilities are. Let them carry on with it. I am there to support with advice. But physically, now the time is mine. Because now my duty is towards redemption, my own redemption, bhai. I need my liberation. When am I going to work on that? I'm going to work on it after the Grihastha ashram is done. I'm done, I'm finished, I'm saturated. And I go back to sannyas ashram. Sannyas again sounds scary because of the way it has been used. But it simply means a life once again of studies, like we are doing now. Going back to studies. Brahmacharya, studies. Grihastha ashram, worldly duties. Sannyas ashram, back to studies of the scriptures. That's the duty ordained to us by the scriptures. So why do we take it lightly? हम अपना गृहस्थ आश्रम drag करते जा रहे हैं कब तक? Till we are 85, 90. And also sannyas doesn't mean that I am going to escape to the forest. वो वर्णाश्रम, so baby हो सकता है. But I am going to remain where I am. My mind has taken that leap, that distance, and then gone far away from psychological dependence of all the sansari duties. So I need that space and I need an emptiness now after Griha. What is that emptiness? That emptiness is that of a flute. The flute creates beautiful music. The most beautiful music flows through the flute, but it is an empty reed, empty inside. And it is one of the favorite instruments of Bhagwan also, Krishna. Okay, that's a symbolism, not to be taken literally. But does the flute ever stand up and say, I create the music? Can the flute ever say that? No. The most beautiful, the breath of Krishna, the breath of consciousness, the breath of God flows through the flute and creates music. So similarly, as music is flowing through the flute, we are able to function. We are just dead pieces of matter, this bundle of so many organs and chemicals packed together. And the most beautiful music of Bhagwan is flowing through us as our consciousness. It is through that consciousness that we are able to have this splendor of listening to scriptures, of awestruck by the beauty of sansar, awestruck by the inspiration of scriptures. Matter cannot do all this, being inspired. So this stage, this splendor, this brilliance, this ability to function in the world, this is consciousness flowing through us, working through us. And we have to be empty for that, empty as the flute. Therefore, Arjun, it is not you who is killing the Kauravas. Forget it, you are an instrument. Their destiny is destruction. Kauravas' destiny is destruction. It will happen with or without you. So do not have that abhiman, मैं ये कर रहा हूँ, मैं वो कर रहा हूँ, मैं ये हूँ, मैं वो हूँ, मैं फला हूँ. Keep the mind empty of all this, and the egoism as empty as a flute, and the music of God will flow freely through us. Every work that we do then will be as beautiful as the work of God. Maybe in Grihastha, maybe in my office, maybe as a community server, doesn't matter. Our roles and functions in the world are so diverse, but it doesn't matter what they are. It doesn't need defining. We spend a lot of time defining our roles and functions. Main ye hu, main wo hu. It doesn't matter. In those roles and functions, how beautifully are we allowing the breath of God to flow through us as our work. Then that work will be beautiful, divine, and for the benefit of others, and without a touch of egoism. So it's as simple as that. I'll end with a quote, J.R.D. Tata, and you know that he was, although being the richest man, his name did not figure in the list of the richest man, but it figured in the list of the philanthropist of the century, the man with the biggest heart, a philanthropist of the century, J.R.D. Tata from India. Of course, we take pride, India. These were people who took refuge in our country from the land of Persia many years ago. You know the history. But you know, one of the quotes, very inspiring from J.R.D. Tata is, my success, he says, rests on the belief that my work which I am doing is to bring benefit and to serve the interests and to serve the people of this country, and that I am only a trustee of those interests. I am only a trustee, and my work. How beautifully, how divine his work became, because he let the work flow as God's work through him, like the flute, like the music of the flute, empty. मैं ये हूँ, मैं वो हूँ. J.R.D. Tata could have said it, and therefore I urge you to see the magnitude of his work and the magnanimity of his heart. You have to read his biography called Beyond the Blue Mountain, if you can find it on Amazon, and then you will know what an empty flute is, and how beautifully the music flows when Bhagwan finds an empty flute and says, aha, my music will flow through this man because he is empty, without an ego, without dambha, darpa, man, abhiman, kam, which brings kam, krodh, and or anger and all the vikar. Such a heavy sludge of quagmire. And then we say, I want to reach the highest. No, we need to be simple to reach the highest and the subtlest. So all that we have to think is, how light can I be of my own egoism and sansar, to play the God's flute, to let God's work flow through me, and to be the God's instrument. That's all I need to be. See, I'm speaking bhakti language today because chapter 13 is steeped in bhakti. So we have had ample days of rationalizing and jnana and sankhya and logic and cause and effect. Now even the beauty and the poetry of bhakti can be inspiring to those of us who may have a propensity for bhakti and for surrender. But let's not forget, we are all a combination of everything. We can do studies and swadhyay and logic and bhakti together. They are not watertight compartments. They are not mutually exclusive. There are swamis who study, who give lectures, who are brilliant in their logic, and evening they go home and they still do their prayers, and morning 4 o'clock they are back with their naam jap. Bhakti and sankhya, jnana, they go together. Because bhakti without jnana is to say, मैं भक्ति कर रहा हूँ, किस बात की? ज्ञान है ही नहीं, तो superstition हुआ ना, blind worship. It's just become अंधविश्वास. No, we don't belong to that category. और ज्ञान without bhakti, how nearest, how dry. That's what Chinmay used to say. So Bhagwan is now inspiring us to move away from this heavy sludge and quagmire of our own making of sansar. And he says, I'm waiting with open arms. Just be there. If you're there for me, I'm there for you. In verse number 11 he says, Mai chananya yogena. कोई अन्य चीज को न पकड़ के मुझे योगेन भक्ति ही भक्ति करके तो देखो मेरी. And that beautiful verse we'll see next time. Om Purnamada Purnamidam Purnat Purnamudachyate Purnasya Purnamadaya Purnameva Vashishyate. Om Shanti Shanti Shanti.